Alright peeps, we here, we're back again. Your main guy, Darren, Social Info Radio, we're back at Speaker's Corner. Got my main guy, Andre with me.
Hey.
Yeah, what's up man, what's up? This is set to record, so we're just gonna see what we find today, peeps.
The colonial or the empire, what they did was they fused the present tradition with the ancient order, right? And they mix everybody up in a global system, right? The only good thing about the global system is that people don't have to reinvent the wheel. They get money, they could have access to anything they want, right? But the problem is, in terms of propaganda, people are still using the narrative of World War II, okay? About racism, okay? Now, the label of racism is very misleading, okay? Because Europe is not homogeneous. You had the French Empire, they had their model, the Spanish, the Portuguese, etc., Britain, etc. Fascism, okay? Now, when we talk of fascism, you're talking about modernity, you're talking about technology, finance, you're talking about living in Star Wars, as compared to underdeveloped countries that were kept down by colonialism, right? Okay? Now, America was like a spaceship, right? Because those who started the spaceship America, they took the wealth of the East and they took the bodies from, well, Africa is the East, I don't know, right? And then they just changed the geography, the ecology of that space. Whatever was on that space become null and void. In other words, Eurocentrism. You're talking about value system. Now, this is problematic because those who were colonized, a lot of them internalize the values of the colonial order. They see themselves as inferior. They begin to act and react as inferiors. Okay? Well, those who did not accept, they probably get killed off. So the world order inherited this concoction of colonial values, patriarchy, and the old world. Okay? When we say the old world, we mean the old Europe, old Islamic cultures. This is what. So we have a situation, people living in America, they're very ignorant. It's the new bloody world, God. And when you have people in America calling themselves, what? Irish Americans? This is nonsense. Afro-Americans? Man, you are Afro-American, they said Africa sold you. If you go to Ghana now, they tell you, this is the fort, right? So we're dealing with a situation where you have new energies, new existence, but you got old ideologies. The people get really messed up, okay? Now, so in terms of development now, okay, people are confused. People are not sure whether the cause is the consequence, whether it is some order, stars or heavenly forces, or if it's the body, or is it the earth? What is it? Okay? Now, the institutions, those who control and exploit all this nonsense, they have the sciences, they know. Because power is knowledge. Knowledge is power. Okay? And It is problematic. See? So we hear in the news countries like Syria. But what is Syria? Syria is just a label. When you look at the people, you will find that they belong or they inherited communities that have thousands of years of memories, that have moved to that region. And a lot of people are very loyal. Okay? Now, as far as the political order is concerned, everything is to do with control and domination. At the same time, one has conflicting liberal anarchists, as you say, nihilists, and other views that talk about liberty, equality, right? And then the multinationals move in, and multinationals are giving people money. And if you have money and you are not aware of how the system of finance works, you could be a suicidal mission you don't know. Okay? And it's not only the fact of money, it's the whole infrastructure, the culture, the commodification process. I mean, last week I argued with someone, and he was telling me that that his ancestors were slaves, and they suffered, and it was a bad deal, you know. So when he finished, I said to him, "What was bad about slavery?" I said, "Jesus, the liberals, the anarchists, was talking about liberation, man. Liberation for who? Not the king, for the slave." So we got a situation where people are brainwashed that slavery is bad. But when you look around you, who created the wealth? The slave created the wealth. And the slave is denying his right to claim the wealth. This is politically messed up.
I was gonna say something, but
messed up.
Okay.
Right?
But you can't say. You see, the thing is, I understand what you're saying, but for you to say that slavery isn't bad, yeah?
No. I'm not saying. No. Please. You're missing the point I'm making. There's a relationship going on, okay? I mean, you're not slaving on your own. It's not masturbation, okay? You're talking about a relation. You're talking about people's energy being expended, creating things. All right? And it's all around you. But I'm talking about the idea. I'm talking about the idea they put into the guy's head. All right? That there's no connection between the wealth
and the enslaved people.
Yes, this is the point I'm making. There is a link.
That's the problem.
Huh?
That's the problem, though.
Yeah, of course it's going to be a problem, because when they brainwash the guy to tell him that you as a slave, you're bad and evil, the guy rob his own till. He deny his right. And then you have the politicians telling you about equality. I mean, they don't talk about equality of millionaires, do they?
No.
Who are they talking about? The slave. So what I'm trying to say, even people don't even interpret. They claim.
The problem
They
today.
descended from slavery.
The problem today is not slavery. It's not a black or white thing.
No,
It's a class thing.
No, but sir, please be very careful. You say it's class. Most people on the planet don't know what class is. They know what God is. Class is a big debate in sociology, sir. When you say class, what do you mean? You're talking about status?
Upper class, lower class, working class.
Brainwash.
This is the thing. Let me tell you something, right? A lot of people will argue about immigration. I saw this years ago when Labour was in and they were saying they were opening up the gates for all these people coming in. For me, the plan behind that was so that your neighbour, and you are different, So when it comes down to things like you want to talk about or you want to argue about the cuts in education or the cuts in public services or the this or the that, Your neighbour's only just come over here 2 months ago, so he's just glad to be in the country. Yeah, so he can't see what you see or feel what you feel because his situation is completely different to yours. Yeah, so when you bring, you've heard the word divide and rule. Unfortunately, this is something that's been happening, and happened in Africa, happened in a lot of places. Yeah, to be able to rule something, you first have to divide it. Yeah, before it was dividing by taking some people from here and putting them there, but now it's dividing the minds and the mentalities of people. Yeah, so when you now have a nation who's divided, you can easily influence and control them. Yeah, and the reality is we're taking our freedoms, our services, and a lot of things that we need just as a human's been taken away from us, and most people do nothing. The thing about the Americans and the way about the Americans that I like is that there's certain things that they won't allow their governments to do. They will get up and they will go out there and they will fight. But for some reason,
but we are Cromwell. We chop our against it.
No, but that's millions of years ago. What I'm trying to say is today we don't do that.
Well, who is we? I mean, no. It's nice you're talking about we. We're very generous, right? You're talking about we. Another guy is telling me about his caste, his tribe, and his bloody God. What are you talking about, God? You know, who is? No, we. You're very generous. You see we, but you go and ask people. Have a vote. Their we is defined by different parameters.
By their own needs or their own selfish desires.
My friend,
how they define themselves.
Yes, how they define themselves. I have seen British-born cry in Speaker's Corner because someone tell them you're not black enough because you're half caste. You know.
Yeah, I know.
What are you talking?
I know.
Well, listen, people are free. No, please. People are free to imagine and call themselves. Right? Although you may see a bigger pool they belong to, it doesn't mean people see that way.
Yeah, it's true.
All right? So, unless you're a dictator forcing them to be one, or you recognize people as they see themselves. But the point I was making is that people have an imagination, right? People use language, okay? And people choose what glasses to wear, what house to live in.
Free will.
Thank you very much, okay? I'm not saying you have to agree with them, but by recognizing where these people are coming from, maybe you could anticipate and avoid a lot of unnecessary problems, okay? Isn't it?
It's interesting what you said about African Americans, Italian Americans, Irish Americans, because that was an attempt to weld people from different groups and give them a greater identity to be under, so that it meant that I would see you as an American.
You're accepted.
We'd have a minor,
so you're accepted now.
And that's maybe where religion comes in as well, because I'm a Christian. I remember I used to be, because I come from an Irish background, okay, and maybe I was very racist as a young man, just looking for an identity, looking for something, and what I did, I found a fact, and I kept feeding myself every negative what I wanted from this group, and I kept feeding myself and feeding. Not that they were incorrect, because they might just be things from the news or something like that. But what I didn't do, I didn't look through the other eye. I didn't even look at any of those. And I remember when God was starting to work in me. I was walking to a church, and let's say you're walking towards me. I don't know who you are, and there's a little pavement. Now I'm walking towards you, and I'm thinking, who's going to be just moving on the pavement? And I looked down, I looked up, and you'd gone into the church I was going into, and I went into that church. You were over there, and I was over there, and there was no one else in the church, and that black man never knew I was even in there. And that moment I thought to myself, I'm closer to you now, on my knees, recognising one creator, than all of the skinheads, or all of the black power things, all of these earthly things. And that is the only hope for mankind, to have this cement that means there is something greater than both of us. And that means the differences between us are so much less. But without that, I know how easy it is to get sick through evidence just because you don't apply the balance. And ever since then, my scales fell off, and I say, look at that black bloke with his white wife and their lovely kids. Before that, I would have never even seen that as a positive thing.
Yeah, but this is cosmetics.
So
this is
it works.
But again,
no.
it's actually the point
This is
that you're
cosmetics.
the point that you're making about people imagining and creating like similar, in groups and out groups and what have you from imagination. It works exactly the same regarding ideology, ethnicity, tribe, caste, etc. And all the various. Now, as you were saying, you got all of the different ways of observing which groups people see themselves as part of and trying to socially engineer a wider scope, which actually goes and the idea of socially engineering a European identity. Well, you're going back to the very original point of there seems to be the one way of engineering a unified European identity hasn't worked, and now they're trying another way of doing it and getting people to it. I think if you can set up a paradigm and get people to use their imagination to identify with your paradigm so that they define themselves in common.
No, but there is...
But there are so many different paradigms that people are never going to agree on.
Even the word common imply difference. What I think people should focus on is on relationship. How you relate. Even in a family, individuals relate with one another. Now, the nature of that relationship could be conflictual, could be friendly, could be, okay? So, and at least power is recognized in a relationship, interests. But when you say group, people are different. Difference is a superficial thing. It doesn't explain relationship, etc. Beautiful, right? Because people are energy, and energy is intelligence. So, and that's why people get into trouble. Because you look at people, all you're looking at is about their identity, and you miss the intelligence. And then you make a mistake, and you put the guy down, and you're shocked.
Judge them, yeah.
Okay, so I think this diversity, this identity politics is a colonial game. It's easy for the colonialists to put a flag and to put categories because he's got soldiers. If you step beyond your boundary, you get shot. Okay, but for most people on this planet, they have more in common with the trees, with the animals, with the stars, okay? The problem they've got is institutions like the state, right? Who don't know them, coming and say, hey, you have to give us part of you. And when they say, why should I give you? This is where taxes and all that nonsense. And this is where the relationship develops into political, or even the businessman will come and claim your body. And when you said to him, this is my body, why do you want me? Okay? And then even if you consent, he promised to pay you, he doesn't pay you. Right? So, but then you have the schooling comes in. And the schooling educates people to abuse themselves, to put themselves down. So people put God in heaven, they put the... and it's problematic. And then you have the peaceful individual, so full of peace, they don't want to hurt anyone, and they want to live, okay? And no one is listening. Right? And then you have in this process professional people, educated people that have knowledge about lifestyle, systems, and all this nonsense. And they're saying, look, global warming is a human dimension impact to this. No one is listening. Okay.
You know what's strange? There are groups of people who have fallen outside of that tension that you're talking about, and they call
relationships.
that communitarianism, which is people of a similar outlook or a similar belief system decide we don't care what goes on in the global sphere. We will do what we think is right collectively, and I'm kind of drawn to that. We lived with the Amish in America, and they live very simply. I'm drawn to this thing. We live simply on the land. The family is the most important part of it. The dad, the mum, the children. You have this super identity, which is your religion, and that actually acts as a mitigating factor.
Because unfortunately, if you don't believe in the state believes in you.
You know what? They've been going for 600 years, and they're still going now in some of the most dangerous places on earth.
Sure.
While the modern world is constantly at war and bombing.
All of the dynamics that take place at the state level and take place politically, then that can come back and bite you on the ass with a steamroller.
It hasn't done so far, despite all of these wars and things that are
because
going
they're
on.
relatively innocuous and pacifistic. That's fine. But if at a certain point, let's say everybody decided that everybody was going to be made to live in cities, then they get turned off the land,
Which happened.
and if it were to happen again, they're completely unprepared to deal with that sort of thing. Because they don't.
For ownership.
Not the sea they swim in. If you ignore and aren't informed about things that take place on a conceptual level of the nation state, if you're busy being communitarian or tribal or caste-ish or whatever, you have to have educated yourself about the different.
It's essentially the thing that we're talking about is a utopian ideal, which we'll never reach, but to try and aspire to as close to get it as you can, which I'm drawn to. Which means you have to have a super identity that covers it, otherwise we end up in armed camps.
Utopias can't exist.
No, but that's the ideal. Unless we have a utopian ideal, what are we reaching for?
But you can aim for things being slightly better and improve.
All societies have all attempted that, haven't they? I suppose.
It takes one person to say no, and it's
I know, and I think it's a case of building up, knocking down, building up and knocking down. But I suppose for me, it's you do the best you can with the time God's given you. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. And I acknowledge there's more to life than just this. So I see the spiritual realm. So that's why I'm not shackled to. It doesn't have to work. It's how I fit into this imperfect thing is more important.
As long as I make myself happy, and I don't hurt anybody else.
That's and to travel through your 70, assisting as many people as possible. To me, that's the law in the Gospels. That's the essential. That's worship.
Just looking on the sign on that, it says, "Not a step. Do not stand on this support."
Quite profound, isn't it?
It is. The famous last word. At least they're not sharp behind it.
I was going to take
But
that
I
off.
want to get one of those.
Well, unfortunately, I think Mathlands have actually closed now.
No more wrestling.
No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.